Well, I'd like to begin by introducing Sean Kamath. He's the Associate Dean of Graduate Business Programs at St. Mary's College, and St. Mary's, of course, is the presenter of the event tonight. So please join me in welcoming Sean.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to see you all today at this wonderful Museum of History, Women and the Arts, particularly because the subject today is about leadership, and I think this, and it's about coaching, and it's about building human capability, and this museum reflects that. So I want to welcome you to the first event this year in the Sacramento area for St. Mary's College of California. This is a very thriving and vibrant part of our state, and our alumni group in this area has been very much embodying that thriving and that energetic part of the state, which is the motto of our alumni group is network, learn, serve. And that's what we've been doing in the region. We believe that this region, even though we're located in Moraga, California, and I get the question, where is Moraga, California? And I have to say, it's across the hill from Berkeley, California. So that immediately places us in the right spot. So thank you for being here. St. Mary's College has been active in this region now for a number of years. In 2010, we hosted a networking event, and then we've done a couple before that. We had a green energy event. Why I say that is because St. Mary's College has, the School of Business and Economics has a motto, which is think globally, lead responsibly. And this event can be seen as part of that as we develop human potential of leadership. We look at that being the global vision as well as the responsible, which we take to mean people, ethics, planet, and performance or profit. So that's what we are about. The other, we have also volunteered very much as part of our responsible business focus. We have volunteered in the area, so we have held, we work with the Sacramento Food Bank and Family Services. We've had a number of events where we work with them to help those who are less fortunate than us. And that's part of our mission here. And with the event today, we look forward to providing continued support to our alumni in this area, continue to bring them together. We do a number of functions in the Bay Area, so we welcome you to come to them. We do as many as 50 different events, out of which 10 or 15 are public events. So we welcome you to come to a Global Economic Forum. We have a health forum coming up as to what the new health law will mean for us, but we don't know what the health law is going to be, so that would be a very exciting event, I'm sure, to get some really like this wonderful panel. I want to thank you all for coming to this, for agreeing to come and speak to us today. I read your backgrounds and your bios, and they were awesome. So I look forward to a very lively discussion today. I also want to thank Jim in particular. Jim Allen has been our spark plug or our motor or our, the engine that has, draws our...
Antagonist.
The antagonist. I thought you said protagonist. Okay, if you were the antagonist, we'd be fighting. So the protagonist, he's been the protagonist for what we do here. And I also want to thank the sponsors for this evening, Safe Credit Union and Jim and his colleagues who are here. Of course, Epiphany Consulting, I want to thank them. And Miller Coors for the wonderful blue moon that we saw today. So I appreciate the blue moon tonight. So thank you very much all, and I look forward to your panel today. Jim, thank you very much for having us here today.
Thank you very much. And that ends the eloquent speaking part of the evening, so now it's my turn. Yes, thank you for acknowledging the sponsors, and while some of the sponsors provided some funding, I know everybody would prefer the sponsorship of Miller Coors for all of their events, so thank you very much to Miller Coors. I think one of the questions you may have been asking yourself when you were either invited or became aware of this event is why this topic? In a broad context, we've all just lived through a significant economic event. The upheaval of the last few years is going to continue to drive changes to public policy. It certainly drives changes to consumer sentiment. It's going to drive changes to employers and how they react to the circumstances and situations around them. I think all that change happening around each of us individuals is giving us the opportunity or forcing us to confront the fact, well, how am I going to remain relevant amid these changes that are going on? How am I going to maintain a skill set that lets me be employed? Or how am I going to confront the fact that maybe I've been succeeding in the rat race, but I don't like running the rat race, and I don't really like the results of having won the rat race. And so I think amid all the changes that are happening around us, it's a great time for a little introspection to say, well, what about me and what can I do for myself and how can I address my own concerns? This evening we've assembled a panel of spectacular coaches and coaching advocates. I'm going to introduce each of them here in a minute. Please hold your applause till the end. But I think through the insights that they're going to share with us tonight, we're all going to get a little closer to answering that question about ourselves, which is, what can I do to continue to remain relevant, and how can I continue to prosper and even get closer to that sort of happiness that we all aspire to. So with that, in no particular order, because I have this pre-written and you sat wherever you wanted to, I'd like to begin by introducing our panelist, Daryl Earhart, our coaching advocate. Daryl's down there. Daryl is currently a practice manager with Dignity Health. It says here the Catholic, is it?
Still Catholic
You're
Health
still,
Co.
okay. Excellent.
We haven't changed over yet.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. With Catholic Healthcare West Medical Foundation, more than 15 years of proven successes in several industries, including healthcare, information technology, and nonprofit sectors. Daryl's past experiences focused on strategic IT management. Currently, Daryl has experience in providing leadership to 14 practice specialties that include integrating new providers to increase specialty, delivery, and access for patients, providing vision, direction, and support to providers, promoting collaboration, effectiveness, and teamwork, and implementing new technologies that, of course, result in improved patient care and operational efficiencies. Daryl, thank you for joining us tonight. Our next panelist, Dean Tracy. Dean, raise your hand. There's Dean Tracy. Dean is a professional recruiter, career coach, public speaker, and he's based in Northern California with an emphasis on placing and coaching professionals at a national level. Dean's personality and enthusiasm have inspired hundreds in the midst of their career transitions. In addition to writing for Examiner.com, he is a contributing author for career advice section on high-profile career boards such as The Ladders and Six Figure Jobs. The National Resume Writers Association has also used Dean's articles and advice on resume makeovers in their newsletters and publications. He is the founder of the National Leadership and Career Management Advisory Group, a multifold advisory group comprised of experts in their respective fields from a variety of market segments across the country. This program is designed to enhance all aspects of leadership, development, and advancement, corporate visibility, and market share in human capital and resource management through their extensive partner alliance and advisory network. In January 2002, Dean redefined and launched the Job Connections program in Danville. Under his leadership, with more than 3,600 member participants and approximately 65 volunteers, this program has grown to become one of the largest and most reputable face-to-face professional networking groups in the greater Bay Area. And by the way, my favorite part of your bio, Dean is a great nephew to the late actor Spencer Tracy. So for those of you with your 6 degrees scorecard, you can mark one off tonight. Thank you, Dean.
I still have to work.
You still have to work. Well, that sounds like a planning problem there. Dean resides in Santa Rosa, California. He celebrates 30 years of marriage to Denise. They have 4 grown children and 2 grandchildren. Dean, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Our next panelist, Pat Ferris. Pat. See, like a good, it's like a hygienist. I waited till you had that bottle of water. You weren't even next, I just did that. For over 25 years, Pat has guided key executives, professionals, entrepreneurs, and teams through significant leadership, career, and organizational transitions. He's coached thousands of individuals and helped them realize their fullest potential, to act courageously in line with their natural gifts, to recognize and overcome blind spots, to practice and embody new competencies, and to engage key stakeholders to meet the challenges and opportunities of circumstance. Pat specializes in executive coaching, leadership development, leadership team development, career management, and strategic planning with broad experience in a wide range of industries. He founded and successfully developed 3 companies and co-founded 2 professional associations. He's provided executive coaching for high-potential future organizational leaders in several in-house leadership academies, as well as for international partners for PricewaterhouseCoopers. What gives Pat the most satisfaction is experiencing the personal, professional, and leadership growth of his clients, witnessing the light coming on in their eyes and seeing breakthrough results from new behaviors where before there had been an impasse. Pat, we're happy to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our list, Laura Perez, leadership coach. Laura, raise your hand. There we go. Laura Perez is very good. I like that. Laura Perez is a certified master executive and leadership coach, as well as a facilitator and management consultant with more than 20 years experience guiding individuals and organizations toward realizing their full potential. Laura is the CEO and founder of Epiphany Coaching, a company that unleashes the power and knowledge of executive and senior leadership teams, equipping them to reach their highest potential. From accelerating teamwork and enhancing leadership skills to effectively managing complex board-level dynamics and structure, Laura partners with leaders to navigate challenging organizational transitions, help discern where they're going, and the best path to get there. Laura has worked with some of the most respected business leaders in the medical, construction, high-tech, banking, and government sectors, both nationally and globally, and has successfully coached the leaders of top-tier organizations of Fortune 500 companies in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and the Sacramento region. Laura, thanks for joining us tonight. Our next panelist, Roger Kenneth March, life coach. Roger is a certified life coach and the author of Next Gen Human, and he's also the founder of MajorGoodMojo.com. How lucky are we to have a panelist that brought to us MajorGoodMojo.com? I mean, is this a panel or what? I mean, seriously.
What do you want?
Get your mojo working. I like that. It's fantastic. For more than 10 years as a, quote, partner for your soul's purpose, Roger has been connecting people to deeper aspects of themselves for more meaning, fulfillment, and joy in life. I wanted to read you a couple of quotes from Roger's website, because of course I had to go scan through that. I love these quotes. These are from Roger. I work with people from all walks of life who have done everything they were supposed to do, followed all the rules for the most part, and have found they are still not fulfilled. My clients have jobs, many have advanced degrees, and most live very full lives. However, with all they have and have accomplished, they still find something is missing. Their lives are very full, but not very fulfilling. They may have been religious in the past, but typically have come to a place where those traditional models are lacking in some way for them and no longer provide the level of satisfaction and fulfillment they're seeking. My clients are emotionally and psychologically stable. That's why I didn't qualify, I'm sorry, Roger. But emotionally and psychologically, but not emotionally and psychologically fulfilled. You may say my clients are experiencing what has been called the midlife crisis, although they're not necessarily at midlife. My clients are people who may have been running hard and keeping up with the Joneses, but are tired of running and simply keeping up. They sense the emptiness of this pursuit, but are lost for what else to do. Roger, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, we are very lucky to have Christine Flaherty as our coaching advocate down there at the Embry-Dariel. Hi, Christine. A native of California, Christine received her undergraduate degree in biology and chemistry from California State University, Sacramento, and her master's in healthcare administration from the University of San Francisco. Her experience in healthcare spans 32 years, beginning as a clinical laboratory scientist and evolving to include various laboratory leadership positions with Sutter Health. She is presently the Regional Laboratory Director for the Sutter Sacramento Sierra region. She is responsible for the operation of the Regional Laboratory Service comprised of 400 employees working in 6 hospital laboratories, a microbiology laboratory, and a large laboratory outreach business. During her career with Sutter, Christine has consolidated laboratory operations, developed successful outreach businesses, designed new laboratories, and created an integrated regional service delivery system. Motivated by her commitment to sustainable excellence in service, she became a certified professional in healthcare quality in 2002. Christine is a passionate advocate for laboratory quality and is an active volunteer for the Clinical Laboratory Standards Institute, CLSI, a nonprofit organization that develops international laboratory guidelines and standards. She presently serves as a member of CLSI's Standing Subcommittee on Quality Management Systems, and has contributed to the development of several CLSI publications. Last year, Christine was the recipient of CLSI's Excellence in Standards Development Award. Nearly 3 years ago, Christine participated as a client in a leadership coaching relationship, and she described that experience as life-changing. Thank you very much for joining us. Everybody, let's give a round of applause for our panelists tonight. I'd like to speak for the next half hour on my thoughts. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, thank you. Try to finish. So I'd like to now turn it over to our panelists so we can enjoy their insight with me. And I think a great place to start would be with some of our coaching clients and advocates. And Darielle, the first question I'd like to ask of you, can you share with us the circumstances that led you to your first encounter with professional coaching?
Panic.
Yeah.
It's like karaoke. Brief background, I'm from Los Angeles. I was a VP for the National Health Foundation, and 2 years ago just had reached a threshold, quit my job with 12% unemployment, and moved to Sacramento. So here I am in Sacramento. So I get in a recruiter who put on a seminar that Laura Perez had produced to help those of us kind of in job transition look to navigate the waters of employment in Sacramento and find direction. And if you were to ask Laura of her impression of our first meeting, you would be amazed and humored. So, I didn't really put a lot of thought towards, I'd never even heard of a coach until I had met her. It never even occurred to me to get any kind of help, even though I've never interviewed for a position for over 20 years. And then, lo and behold, in the mail, I get an invitation to come interview with Nevada County, and absolute sweat, panic, and fear wash over me. And after pacing in my backyard for 3 days, I finally reached out and called her. So that was my life-defining moment and introduction to coaching. We subsequently met, and as I shifted back to...
I told her I wouldn't bite.
Got through the interview and then reached out to her a few more times, and we developed a relationship, if you will. And she helped me navigate through being unemployed and identifying exactly what it was I wanted to do with my life, because it was nice being a VP and I made very good money, but as a life coach could probably attest to, it's not always the most fulfilling thing. So I now had transitioned into operational management in a clinic setting. That's where you go see your primary care physician and any subsequent specialist you're referred to. And in getting this position, I actually had to fight for it because I did not have clinic experience. And I went head-to-head with a few people, and it came down to what makes you think you're qualified. And thanks to Laura's preparation work, I whipped out my portfolio and gave them a line-by-line dissertation of what made me qualified for that job, and they hired me. So I started out with, in our organization, we're only supposed to have 3 to 6 clinics, and I have 14 specialties, 25 physicians, and 35 employees. And it's successful. I'm one of the few managers meeting all my productivity goals today. To top all this wonderful news off, it's a union environment. So I've called Laura frequently. Being at the other end of an SEIU target is not a pleasant experience, and she helped me navigate and create the relationships that today have been very successful with the union, as well as all my physicians and all my employees, to the point to where I can take time off and things run very smoothly. So it's been a screaming success, and now I'm venturing on to step 2, which is getting involved in some of the more organizationally oriented activities today. So it wasn't something I'd given a lot of thought to. It was something I stumbled into, and something that I have embraced enthusiastically on occasion. And Laura has done an outstanding job of keeping me reined in and maintained my employment.
I didn't pay her to say that.
Yeah, so Daryl, I'm taking notes. I just want to make sure. So I should be moving to a new region, quitting my job in the midst of high unemployment, and that's the path I should be taking to coaching. Just want to make sure.
Well, you know, in interviews, when they ask you if you're a risk taker or how you deal with change,
Yes.
When they asked me how I dealt with change, I responded, well, I quit my job with 12% unemployment, moved to Sacramento.
Yeah. Check.
Yeah,
All right,
so
that's perfect.
Pamela, she deals with change well.
Thank you for sharing that. Chris, I wonder, do you have a similar story as to what brought you to the support of a professional coach, or what was your story?
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty different. I was fortunate that our senior leadership team offered me professional coaching about 3 years ago. And I think that they saw me as a highly competent clinician and manager who could execute brilliantly in command and control mode. And I think they also saw me as someone who was almost entirely results driven and limited in my ability to lead. Over the years at Sutter, while I was accomplishing a long list of things, I had unintentionally estranged a few key leaders at Sutter. And that was a liability for me as well as for my organization, because we rely so heavily on collaboration to function. And I had not developed my own capacity for the personal aspects of leadership, like approachability and compassion. And at that point in my career, I really knew that something was missing for me. I knew I was missing something, and I knew that I certainly wasn't experiencing the depth of fulfillment that I wanted. So I was ready for more. And I know, some leaders might be a little unnerved when their boss turns to them and says, so we think you could greatly benefit from coaching. But because I was so ready, I really viewed it as a generous gift and Sutter's willingness to invest in me. And so without hesitation, I accepted the offer.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. The next question I'd like to ask to Dean is, we've heard about the path that some of the clients have taken toward coaching. How does somebody actually become a coach? What's their life experiences that leads them up to being a coach?
Holy smokes. Well, I appreciate you putting me between a young life coach and a mature with a full head of hair.
We need you can hold your own.
Wow. Boy, I was an IT director. I was with a software company when 9/11 hit. The company went sideways, and I was shown the door with a severance package. I started a program at our church called Job Connections, and it was really intended to bring folks that are in the midst of job change or job loss, like myself, together with people of influence in the church. There are a lot of people of influence in the church. And we grew this program. Our very first meeting, we had 8 people. We were meeting in a children's classroom around small round tables and little itty-bitty chairs. And now we have over 100 people that come every week, and we're the largest group in Northern California. We are hosted by the church, but we don't shave your head and take your money. We want everybody to come. And so I don't want you to think, if you hear about the program, that it's a religious thing. And
I look good in orange.
and you look good in orange. So, while I was running this program, I thought, man, if I could do this the rest of my life and get paid for it, I'd be the happiest guy around. So I took those steps. And I wanted to learn more about staffing, so I went to work for a staffing company. And while I was there, I broke my back. It wasn't with the company, I was doing my own thing. Broke my back. And I had 4 surgeries in 8 months. While I was out scheduling my 3rd surgery, recovering from my 2nd, scheduling the 3rd, My employer had told me that I had been out longer than the employee handbook would allow me to be out. You know this, apparently. Did you write that book? And if I didn't return to work, they were going to cut me loose. So while I was recovering from back surgery, I thought, okay, well, if that's how they want to play, I'll compete against them. So I picked myself up, and under a heavily medicated state in between surgeries, I thought, man, this is the path I'm going to take. And I have loved it ever since. It has absolutely changed my life. And knowing that what I'm doing is having an impact on the people that are coming to me for help is a big deal to me. And I love it. I wouldn't change it. And I've got a lot in my background. I've worked undercover. I've been a CIO. I've been a teacher. I wouldn't go back to any of that. I absolutely love what I'm doing.
Thank you for sharing. That's fantastic. Roger, how about you? What was your path to being a coach?
The key was people kept coming up to me, and I was coaching them, but I didn't know it. So it was kind of something that I had a skill for, a gift for. I had listening skills that I didn't really know that I had, and I had an ability to ask good questions, and people appreciated that. This was in the mid-90s. And you get the insight, hey, I enjoy doing this, maybe I can get paid for this. And so you start down that path, and I did some volunteer work, and was a volunteer coach for some organizations, and that worked out really well, and then pursued the certification and formed the business in 2004, and just kept building my skills and putting more and more into my toolbox, if you will, to help clients, and just enjoyed it thoroughly.
Fantastic. Laura, is there a certified body for coaching, or is there some type of coach's qualifications that we as potential clients might want to look for when looking for coaching?
That's a really good question, and there is. Coaching is a very trendy thing right now. It has been for the last, excuse me, I'm kind of losing my voice here. It has been for the last 5 to 7 years. So there's a lot of consulting firms and consultants that are calling themselves coaches. There's some differentiation, and what it is a lot of coaches like us have gone to schools to get the certification. And there's schools out there, private institutions, nationwide and worldwide, that provide certifications. And it's mandated by by ICF, which is the International Certification Federation. So, depending on the individual, whether it's spiritual life coaching or career development or organizational coaching, that's the path that the individual takes. So it's a step-by-step process. It's as if when we started going to the university, we came with our associate. From associate, you go into your bachelor's. Hopefully by then, we're still deciding what we want to do when we grow up. But by that time, we have decided, hopefully, what we want to do. We move on to our master's and then to a PhD. So that's kind of what the steps in becoming certified for a coach, depending on how you want to evolve. For me, because my background is in business, I naturally evolved into leadership and executive coaching.
That's great, thank you. Pat, one of the things Laura just mentioned is the difference between consultants and coaches. Do you have an opinion or a perspective on the difference between those two disciplines?
Coaching is a fairly new field, and I first realized I was a coach in about 1998, went through a certification process. I'd been a consultant, I have been a consultant at this point for about 25 years, and been self-employed for most of that time. And when you're self-employed, you can call yourself anything that you want to. And people can say, no, you aren't, but it's pretty irrelevant if you say that you are. And at this point, coaching is an unregulated field. There are people who call themselves coaches who just woke up and said, well, I'm going to call myself a coach today. There are people who went through a certification process like Laura's talking about. The specific differentiation between consulting and coaching is really hazy. The way that I like to see it is that a consultant oftentimes will come in, diagnose a situation, do a report, and tell you or tell the organizational sponsor, this is what you should do, and this is what I recommend. A coach, on the other hand, will usually go in and do an assessment, if it's an individual coaching situation. We'll ask you what your aspirations are, what seems to be inhibiting you from those aspirations, what do you believe your strengths are, and then we'll be able to work with you to identify a way that's uniquely suited to you. And instead of giving you a report and saying you should do this, we'll help you to identify what's uniquely suited to you. A coach evokes, a coach elicits, and a coach helps you to define and walk a path to the specific goals that you have. A consultant will tell you what to do and give you a report and charge you some money for that. A coach might give you a report if you ask for it, but that's only a minor part of the whole process of your integrating those skills. As a coach, my job is to make myself dispensable rather than indispensable, because the client has embodied the skills, has walked closer to the goals that they initially had.
That's great, thank you. Roger, I saw you nodding your head a lot, and I'm thinking about your website once again about people getting out of the rat race, and I mean, can you give us an example of how that's possible and how, like Pat described, as a coach, you can sort of illuminate a path that the individual might follow?
Yeah, I was nodding my head a lot because what Pat was talking about, which is so key to a successful coaching-client relationship, is individual ownership by the client, that they actually take responsibility for their own lives. And as a coach, I'm working with the client, and together we walk down that path, but they've got to take the steps. And so that's one of the most important things in terms of being a successful client and getting the results you want. And when it comes to escaping the rat race, I think it's a myth. I want to say, you know, the idea of escaping the rat race is getting out of that damn corporate job and then, you know, finally being free. And that's actually a myth. The truth is, when you're doing what you love, you can do it in a lot of different formats, places, and contexts. So the question is, are you doing what you love? Are you doing what deeply matters to you? And if you can pass this litmus test, you can ask yourself, would I do what I'm doing if I wasn't paid? And if you say yes, great, you probably don't feel like you're in the rat race. But if you say no, more than likely you're working for the paycheck, and the work you're doing turns into kind of a grind. And it's like, you know, back into this again. And so the key is to stay aligned with what you are deeply motivated to do and excited about. And the truth is, most of us are somewhere on that scale. You know, the money does matter. I'm not saying that we work that we work for free. What I'm saying is that's the test to see why you are working, and get to your core why. And then when you're clear on that, you can see that you can do that in the corporate context. There's a lot of very happy people working in corporate roles. Or maybe you're part-time, or maybe a contractor, or maybe you do go out and start your own business. But it's not the vehicle, it's more like what's your, as a spiritual life coach, it's a soul-based purpose. And your passion is another good word for that, your passions, and really finding that. And that's something that changes over your lifetime. And so you've got to constantly stay on top of that, because you may, you know, write a book or something, then that's done, and what's next? So it's an ongoing discovery process. So that's what I would say is the key to escaping the rat race, is really aligning around what you truly love, and then see where you can do that.
Chris, I see you smiling down at the end. After your experience with your coaching engagement, do you feel like you're close to that sort of perspective where, you know, I understand who I am and how I fit in and where I'm going, and did it make a difference for you in that way?
Yeah, it did. It made a big difference. I think the single biggest difference for me, personally and professionally, is where I place my attention. So before coaching, I mostly paid attention to getting things done. You know, and I didn't completely understand how my focus on doing was actually undermining my effectiveness as a leader. And now I mostly pay attention to just being. So there was a real shift for me, and an example is I have daily practices to cultivate an awareness so that I can be fully present and curious and authentic in any situation, even if it's high stakes or heated at work. And I'm beginning to wonder if my greatest contribution as a leader just might be connecting wholeheartedly with others and creating a space where they can do the same.
That's great. There's a lot of insights in there. Thank you. Darielle, what about you? What's your experience in terms of how fulfilled you felt or how more aligned you felt after your coaching, before and after your coaching experience?
Well, like I said, I met Laura in career transition, and one of the things was identifying what is my passion. And working in the healthcare field in my previous position, it was mostly surrounding research, analysis, policy. And one of the things that I didn't realize that was eating at me was that in all of our research and analysis and all the policy decisions that were occurring at the city, county, state, and federal level are all based off hospital data, not clinic. And where does everybody go when they're sick? The clinics. So I started to kind of realize that I had a real passion for helping people. And if you've ever been caught up in going through the healthcare system, I'm sure everybody here can relate at some level, there's inherent challenges along the way. And I wanted to play a role in improving not only the patient's experience, but if you improve the experience and get them the access to the things they need access to, you're going to improve the patient outcomes, bottom line. And if we can improve patient outcomes at the ambulatory level, it reduces the need for acute care and acute care in the long run. Because as they say, 80% of our healthcare dollars are spent in the last 20% of your life. So I oversee clinics such as oncology, and it's very true. And so I just have this passion for my patients. My clinics see about 150 to 200 patients a day across the board. And watching the old lady with glaucoma walk out scene, watching the cancer patient, beating the cancer, watching my vascular surgeon save somebody's life or my cardiologist, there's just real satisfaction that somebody's going to live to see another day and be better off for it. So, there's really a lot to be said you can work in the corporate world, like Roger said, and still feel fulfilled at the level of passion, what gets you up in the morning, what gets you to work. It's not that I love going to work every day. You have those days, but bottom line, when I'm helping the old lady in the wheelchair out the door, having finished her chemo, you are doing something for somebody else that really fulfills that need, that probably burns in a majority of us, if not all of us. So, and it's all about the relationships of the patients, the staff, and the physicians, and other administrators and people in your organization, as Christine pointed out, that will facilitate your success in the long run. And that's probably the biggest key takeaway I've taken away from coaching, is the importance of relationships.
It's interesting to hear you both say that and express that commonality in your experiences. This next question is really for the coaches. One of the things that we have differentiated in the billing for this event was leadership versus career. And I'm wondering if one of you has a perspective or can help us understand what's the difference between, leadership coaching and career coaching. And maybe Dean, we can start with you. Do you have a perspective on that? Or?
I've always got a perspective.
Would you be willing to share it?
I think that we are all put here to be leaders, regardless of what we're doing. Everybody here is put here to be a leader in some capacity. And I think that the leadership side of it, as a leader, their role is to be tactical, strategic, more of a visionary. This is my opinion. Where the manager or the coach is really the person that's going to do the hand-holding and guiding you through. So The leader is setting the standards and vision, and the coach is walking you through it.
Great.
My
Thank
perspective.
you. Pat, what do you think?
Difference between leadership and
Leadership coaching and career coaching. If someone were coming to you and saying, I need leadership coaching, or
Yeah.
I don't know the difference, what would you
Yeah.
tell them?
So I started out calling myself a career consultant. And that's before we knew about coaching. When we started learning about coaching, I called myself a career coach. And then when I discovered that I was working mostly with mid-level managers and senior executives, I called myself a leadership coach because it seemed to connect them. I don't have clear differentiations between those categories.
I respect marketing. I think that's important.
Hey, well, it's marketing. It's also communication and creating a bridge.
Yeah.
So, as it's being defined more recently, a career coach is oftentimes someone who helps someone through career transition. And a person who might come to me and say, I've either lost my job or I'm completely dissatisfied with my job and I have no idea what to do, or I have a goal about where I want to go and I want some assistance. That's a career coach. A leadership coach is someone who is currently in a managerial role or aspires to be, or a director or a VP or an executive role, and wants some support and guidance and someone to walk that path with them and to give them some guidance and some reflection in a way that they oftentimes don't get from other people. That's a leadership coach who might also call themselves an executive coach, if that's the bridge that works best for people.
That's great. Thank you very much. Laura, I wonder, how do you help a prospective client recognize the value in partnering with you? How do you, someone comes to you and you're doing that sort of negotiation, how do you make it self-evident that these are the ways that they could benefit?
Based on the value comes from the results. So once the coach and the client start working together, first of all, it is a partnership. It is a formed partnership. And coaches, I'm going to just elaborate on this a little bit. Coaches are partners of trusted advisors. And as a partner, it's a shared partnership responsibility, accountability, as well as a shared success. So in that being said, the true value comes in the results when the client is continuously working with the coach. So the results are both the short term and the long term.
That's great. Thank you. How do you help a candidate assess their own readiness for a coaching engagement? We heard Chris talk about the fact that her organization was very supportive of coaching and might have likely suggested she might benefit from it. How would you help her understand or assess her readiness? And maybe we just go down the line and start with you again, Laura.
When clients come to me, they know they're ready when a lot of times people are saying, will come and say, I'm stuck. I'm in a position where I'm not sure, I've made it this far, I'm not sure where I want to go from here. I feel like I'm frozen in time. So through that dialogue and conversation between the client and the coach, it's that dialogue of clarity of where they're at, where they want to be, and where they want to go based on their skill sets, whether it's through career development or executive leadership, which is, how do I take and lead my team in the organization? How do I provide vision and articulate that vision? So with that being said, I'm going to pass it on to you.
There are a number of factors. I have a client who came to me about a year ago. At that point, wasn't a client, it was an exploratory meeting. He was an assistant medical director for a medical group in the Central Valley. Also a compliance officer for this 350 physician medical group. Very successful physician, a Sikh. He was born in India, has been in this country for 10 years. He came to me because he was getting feedback that he was running over people. He was seen as arrogant. He was seen as dismissive. His patient satisfaction scores were low. And his results were great clinician. But he was capped in his leadership ability. He wanted to rise in the organization. He came to me saying, I really need your help. I've tried this, I've tried that. He tried linguistic training because he speaks with a very thick accent. He tried all sorts of things. Presenting was someone who really wanted my services. He wanted to discover what he could do to change his behaviors. He wanted to change other people's perception. And when I asked him further about it, he called a number of the physicians that he worked with bozos. He called some of the nursing staff assholes. So I listened and I said, so they call you arrogant? And he said, yes. So I made some connections to some of the language he used and some of the examples he gave, and he was a little stunned. And he said, well, can you help me fix that? And I said, well, we aren't talking about fixing here. It's not a technical solution. It's not substituting specific words for other words. So my exploratory sessions are usually an hour. And it's a time that I won't charge for. There's no obligation and no expectation that it will continue necessarily on. After that, it's a mutual exploration and identification whether there's a fit. At the end of the hour, I said, you know, I don't think there's a fit here. You're really motivated. You really are ambitious. I can see that you're really sincere. You drove, well, I won't tell you where, but 3 hours to get to me. But I don't see that this is going to work on the level that you are looking. So he asked me what kind of level. I said, there's got to be some deep-seated attitudinal changes, which then will translate into behavior. But it's got to be because you care about these people across the board. There was a veil that went up between us. He went away, contacted me 2 months later. We had another exploratory session. Finally, I took him on as a client. So the presenting question that was asked, how do you know if you're ready? I would suggest that if you think that you're ready, you hook up with a coach in an exploratory session where there's no obligation and you dig into it. You may in fact be ready. It may be the optimum time for you. It may instead be something that maybe you need to look through a little bit and work with a little bit. Invest a little bit of time in exploring that. If it is time, if you're ready, and if you're willing to devote the time and energy and attention, because it's not just going once a week. You got to do some work in between, and you got to apply it, and you got to experiment and explore and look at some of your behaviors, perhaps. It could be a tremendous opportunity, or it could be a waste of time.
You know, I think that's a great point that I want to elucidate on, is that how do you know, in Dean and Roger, when you are involved in a coaching relationship, how do you do the ongoing evaluation, say, are you still calling people bozos? Are you, are you actually making progress with that client? And Pat gave us a great example of how to assess someone's readiness. How do you assess their continued benefit from your relationship?
Is this being recorded with the language rating?
Yes. We're going to send this to the standards board.
Disclaimers? Yeah. Censored? There's a black tape over your mouth.
Coops?
I think that if you're investigating an engagement with a coach, you've got to know that there's got to be bi-directional accountability. You've got to be ready to commit. You've got to be ready to listen. And you've got to be ready to follow through. I have a client on the East Coast, and she works for a very big professional wrestling company with 3 initials. And and I said, I don't think you're ready, and because you're still pretty angry, and you've got a lot of baggage that I'm not willing to carry for you, and I don't want you to have buyer's remorse. And she said, no, I'm ready. It was about a month and a half into it. She said, I'm not ready. She wasn't willing to listen, to your point. She wasn't willing to commit to it. She wasn't willing to take it serious. So we had to separate. But that's, to me, the most critical piece is bidirectional accountability, and you've got to be able to listen and commit.
Roger, what about you?
I would just add that when I get on an initial call with a client and we're doing the exploratory, any coach should be willing to give you some free time to explore that. That makes sense for both the coach and for the potential client. And I'm looking for a number of things, but a few keys is how frustrated are they in getting the results that they say they want. They haven't been able to get that result, and they're frustrated in that process. So there's some pain associated there. We heard a little bit of that over here in terms of the story when people get motivated, coming from a place of something's not working and I really want it to work. And I'm willing to do something. I'm willing to try something. Sometimes they say, I'm willing to try anything. And when they say that, I'm really excited because we've got lots of possibility there. So those are some of the things I look for, and I've just reinforced the fact that you've got to be ready in your life to make some changes and fit it in. That's a key to success. It will take you time. You get on the phone call once a week or twice a month, that's fine. The worst clients are the ones that are expecting me to do it for them. And I have learned over the years to get that really clear up front. My expectations about the relationship, I make sure they're really clear. I have them read the client intake materials and initial each page. It's gotten to that point so that I make sure we're clear, and then I come right back to that. Remember, we agreed that this, because people's lives are busy and you can't fit it in, but we keep returning to that. And with respect to benefits, again, that's another part of setting it up. Get really clear about what you want to achieve. How would it look if this coaching, I ask my clients, if this relationship turned out perfectly, how would it look in 6 months or a year? And then they say, well, these things. And I make sure that those are realistic. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes we can do more than that. But that gets written down and we agree to it, and then we check in on every call. Are we making good progress? Is this working for you? So there's no surprises. And if it's not, we look and say, how can we make this work for you? What things can we do to change the relationship? Sometimes you can't make the change. So I've had clients stop for a few months because they have other things going on in their life, so they back off. That's fine. We put it on ice and they come back and they hit it again. And so that's what I would add to this conversation. Yeah.
That's great.
Add to that as well, and and understanding that this is a process, right? Yeah, it is a process. It's a learning process. The ability to learn and to raise a level of awareness within yourself, but to also be very frank and honest, because that's a lot of this dialogue is very, very personal and it is very honest. So to be able to talk with your trusted advisors here and it's our job to promote and encourage thought. What it is that you want to achieve, what is it that you want to change, and you're right, is how realistic is that? How attainable are your goals? And maybe you might want to, even during that coaching process, is you might realistically end up saying, you know what, this is not the path that I wanted to go down. I decided to switch. So through that process and being patient with it is huge. So the confidentiality and the conversation, the dialogue that goes on between the coach and the client is real crucial, and the accountability is huge. We will hold you accountable.
That's great.
Second that, she will.
We're coming to the conclusion of the plan portion of this discussion, so if you have any questions, be thinking of them now. I know we have a microphone we can pass around. But what I'd like to do is end back where we began with Jeriel and Chris and hear from you. What are the elements that you're in control of as a client to help make sure this experience is successful and rewarding in the ways that you want it to be? And Daryl, maybe we'll start with you. What are the things that are under your control as a client?
Just my actions, really. When you use a coach, you're typically trying to get through something or over something or address something. And it's nice to have a person, like Laura said, a trusted advisor, who sees right through me and does hold me accountable to my end of the deal. It is a two-way relationship. And if I don't fulfill my end of the bargain, you know, there's repercussions for that. You know, and in my position, you know, the ramifications of me not being a good leader, you know, and fulfill the vision, direction, and support that I feel obligated to give my clinics, you know, there are even larger repercussions. So as far as what I'm in control of is my actions, my responses, and being accountable for what I do in between our sessions and being honest.
That's great. Chris, what about you?
Well, I would say first and foremost, what's in control for the client is their own intention and their own effort. And so they really need to ask themselves, if they're considering coaching, what are my intentions and am I willing to do the work? For me, my coaching involved learning that was deeply personal and at times difficult. So I have a hard time imagining that kind of learning can happen without really clear intention and effort by the client. And I think a really important aspect of the coaching that's totally within the client's control, and that was true for me, is the ability to give feedback to the coach. You know, coach the coach, and tell the coach what's working and what's not working. You know, everyone learns differently, and that's really, I think, key to the success. And you can make specific requests of the coach so that your own learning experience can be enhanced.
That's great. That's a great answer. Thank you very much. Are there any questions in the audience for our panelists? I think we've got a benefit. Not yet, Rachel. I'm not talking. I think we've got the benefit of a lot of different perspectives. And, you know, let's take advantage of this opportunity. Are there any questions now? Rachel.
So I think Christine started to touch on this, but you talked a lot about accountability for the person who's being coached, but I'm interested in knowing what the coach is accountable for in the coaching process. What can we expect of the coach?
Great question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Really great question.
Well, do you want to?
Oh.
Well, like I stated earlier, is, you know, it's a shared partnership. It's a shared partnership and commitment. So the responsibility is shared as well. You know, when we're working with the client and we see that our client's struggling, or we're working together to achieve specific results, and for me, I'm the coach providing the value. So if my client is needing additional assistance or guidance in certain areas, specific fields, it's my job and responsibility to make sure that the information, the resources, I'm providing it to my client. So that's my accountability and what I'm responsible for. So whatever I say I'm going to follow through with my client, I'm going to make sure that that happens. Like I said, whether it's sharing of resources, information, even making introductions. So.
I think it's the responsibility of the coach to hold the agenda. First, to discover what the agenda is, and then to continue to go back to that agenda. And I think what I mean by that is, when I first meet someone, I try to discover where they want to head, what their goal is, what seems to be standing in the way, and then we spend the first part of our work together getting really clear on what the strengths are and what the inhibitors are. And then as we're meeting, there could be a tendency to go somewhere around and far afield, and it's the responsibility of the coach to listen, to support, to go in some of the directions that emerge anew in some of the later sessions, and then to ask, well, how does that relate to our initial intention to do this? And especially if there's a behavior, if there's some statements that don't seem to be integrated with that initial intention, then it's the responsibility of the coach to say, well, earlier on, you were saying that you wanted this, and now this seems very different. How does that relate? That kind of question helps us to become aware of some conflicting patterns that otherwise we may not observe. So the coach holds the agenda, sometimes very lightly, sometimes in a way that, hey, look at this.
I've got an article online. It's the 6 ups of your job search. The number 4, 5, and 6 are show up, speak up, and shut up. And I think as a coach, we need to know when to do those 3 things, and when to know what our limitations are. At what point have I done what I can for you? And maybe it's time to hand you off to somebody else or to make that recommendation. That's my response.
What were those 3?
Show up, speak up, shut up.
I got
no one to stop talking.
Roger, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I would second everything that's been said, and also in my coaching, what I do is I teach very specific skills. For example, connecting with heart-based wisdom. There's an entire license that I have for teaching people how to do that, and I make sure that you can do that if that's something that we agree that you want to learn. Or finding and following your passions. I've got a whole process for doing that, and I empower my clients so they can do it over and over and over for themselves. So these are specific skill sets that I make sure are imparted and learned by my clients. So that's a responsibility I have, in addition to holding the agenda, to holding them accountable, to making sure that we're getting the results that they wanted. That's really what it is.
Fantastic.
One more briefly. I think it's one of the most important, actually. I think the coach is accountable for doing their own work. We all come with assumptions that we lay on others, grids through which we see other people and ourselves. And if a coach isn't pursuing their own coaching, if they don't have their own coach, or they aren't going through their own daily personal practice and getting support in their own practice community, then they need to take a respite from coaching. So one thing, if you're talking with coaches, one of the things that would be most helpful for you to know is, what are you doing to work on your own development? Really important and could be potentially insightful question.